Prepare to step back to the heyday of West Coast railroading, a time where steam was still king and diesels were still finding their footing, where life was a bit slower and everybody knew their neighbors, when the arrival of beautiful streamlined passenger trains was a town-wide event, and you could watch powerful iron horses give it their all as they hauled mile-long freight trains over steep grades. It's been over 2 years since my last layout tour, and we have so much to catch up on. Gone are the days of modeling a scenic railroad, and the powerhouses of the West have established their empires. Daylight, Armor Yellow, and Warbonnet dominate the rails, and you won't believe your eyes when you see how much the layout has changed. The best way to experience all is by train, and you've got a first-class ticket. We'll hop aboard the Daylight and take a round trip around the line and stop at all the sites along the way. With so much to see and a few hidden secrets, you won't want to miss out. Let's climb aboard our train and get the best seat in the house. So come along with me as we tour the entirety of the Jordanova Sub. All aboard? We wait patiently downtown at the depot as we wait for the flagship passenger train of the Jordanova Sub to arrive, Southern Pacific's stunning Daylight. Many people have turned out today and are lining the platform. Some are here to greet arriving friends and relatives, while others are here to embark on a journey of their own. Railroading plays a major role in the culture and way of life here in this small town. 3 major railroads share this small station: the Southern Pacific, Union Pacific, and Santa Fe. Next to the quaint depot, a water tower looms overhead. Maintained by the Union Pacific, many thirsty steam locomotives pause here to refill their tanks, as we will soon see with the incoming Daylight. The water tower is made by Broadway Limited and can be activated by a push button located towards the front of the layout. The combination of animation and sounds makes it very popular to visitors. Union Pacific has taken full advantage of the massive structure and has painted their logo high in the sky for all to see. Nearby, the City Council has dedicated a small plot of land to a park. It's very popular with townsfolk, and many people come by throughout the day to sit and watch trains go by. Not to be outdone by the UP, Southern Pacific has actually donated one of their bay window cabooses for the locals to enjoy. Crossing the tracks and traveling down Main Street, some new buildings have been added to the east side of town. In the past, I had haphazardly placed a Lionel residential house and a random water fountain here since I really didn't know how to incorporate this oddly shaped part of the layout. With the engine shed being placed at the very edge of town, it presented a very difficult challenge to how to incorporate buildings into this area. It was too narrow to have a full-size building, but too big not to include a structure. Thankfully, my buddy Matt from West Chicago Model Railroad came in clutch and gifted me a Menards gas station building flat. Originally I'd planned to pass it on, but I quickly realized it would be a perfect fit for the space. After trimming the huge base off the bottom and adding some woodland scenic lights, it's been a staple of the layout ever since. Finishing off the scene is Molly's Diner, another pre-built structure from Woodland Scenics. During my younger years in food service, I had a friend by the same name, so I thought it'd be fitting to pay tribute to her. Going further into town, we can see Main Street has changed quite a bit since we last saw it 2 years ago. Long gone are the Rail King buildings and residential houses, and beautifully constructed Woodland Scenics buildings take their place. I was actually fortunate enough to get these buildings for an absolute steal thanks to my good pals Greg, Maddie C, and Steve K from NLOE. Not only did they help me secure these awesome structures, but they also hand-delivered them to me at Trainapalooza a few years back. Much like the former Rail King buildings, the downtown strip not only provides a stunning backdrop, but also serves as a scenic divider. With the buildings blocking your sightline, you can only see half the layout at once, helping to give a sense of depth. Finishing up on the west end of town, even more has changed here. Previously, there was a tank park and a flag post. Back then, the town was little more than a basic concept with no roads, so there was no way for vehicles to even make it into town. However, this has been vastly improved upon. Not only is there now a crossing that allows folks to drive into town, but I've added another crossing that moves into the industrial district. At the very edge of town, there's a small farmer's market of local produce delivered by the Pacific Fruit Express. The Jordanova Sub is well known for having the best strawberries in the nation. Across the street, we can also find a local park. There's lots of shady trees and it's a popular place to relax and have a barbecue. While the original purpose of the tank park was to hide references to my other hobbies, keen-eyed visitors may be able to spot some references dotted around the layout. Let me know down in the comments if you spot and recognize any of them. Next to the park, there's also a local post office for mailing packages. While quaint and inviting from the front, around the back there appears to be some questionable activities going on. But after hearing a distant whistle, we scamper back to the depot as the Daylight glides into town. Porters quickly hurry passengers on board as the crew tends to topping up the tender with water.
That burn water everywhere. What's the valve? What's the valve? Let's move out.
With almost too much water, the engine is ready to depart. Water spillages are common here, as it's easy to lose track when there's so many friendly onlookers on the platform. After getting the all aboard from the conductor, the engine sounds off and departs once again down the main line. As we depart and begin our journey, we'll take a few moments to go over an overview of the Jordanova Sub. The layout is 6 by 10 feet, featuring 2 interconnected loops of Lionel Fast Track. On one side of the layout, there's a heavy focus on small towns, while the other is more industrial with an engine servicing facility. The minimum radius is 0.60 for not only the curbs, but for the switches as well. The width of the benchwork did not allow for wider 0.72 curbs. However, this has never been a big issue since there's yet to be an engine I couldn't run on my layout. Even massive cab forwards and big boys are able to navigate with ease, though it can look a bit ridiculous at times. For added visual interest in higher speed running, all curves on the mainline have also been banked. This was achieved by using half a piece of cork roadbed on the outer portion of the curve, while shimming the other side with a thin piece of cardboard. It does take a bit of tinkering to get just right, but the effect is well worth it. Longtime subscribers may remember that my layout was originally based off a scenic railroad. Now, this allowed me to collect a variety of different railroads and pieces without having to worry about if it was prototypical. This was also during my Steam excursion start phase, and I wanted a place where I could reasonably have them all meet, similar to Trainfest 2009. Sadly, former dreams and funding don't go hand in hand, and I needed to narrow down my focus. For most of my life, I had a strong fascination with the Southern Pacific, Union Pacific, and Santa Fe. My first engine was a Rail King GS2, so it was only natural. Over the course of 2023, I had watched many videos from Charles Smiley Productions, as well as old footage of the Southern Pacific and the Bay Area during and after World War II. There was something about watching a no-name in-service passenger train streak past or a long manifest freight train creep on by that gave trains a whole different level of power and allure, and that's what I want to model on my own layout. Even though I was constrained by the overall size of my layout, it allowed me to pack as much detail as possible into each scene and required some clever trickery to make the layout appear much larger. The main two I use most often are a combination of backdrops and scenic dividers. Regardless of what angle you stand to view the layout, cleverly placed buildings block your sightline so you can't fully see the other end of the layout. Even though the train doesn't disappear for more than a few seconds, it gives your brain the impression the train is actually going somewhere rather than just chasing its own tail. Backdrops can also play a massive role in giving your layout depth and can really help to immerse you in the scenes you are creating. My main backdrop is from TrainJunkies.com and features an expansive Californian mountain that really helps to sell the look of a rugged West Coast railroad. When filming and photographing trains, if you have a backdrop, I strongly advise in hiding the border of where it ends. It's something I see quite often and can massively improve your shots by simply zooming in and hiding the border. That way, your viewer is more immersed in the scene and their imagination is left to guess on what's like outside of camera shot. Speaking of scenes, there's plenty more to see here in the Jordanova Sub, so let's head back to our train and continue our tour of the line. After settling into our seats and grabbing a drink from the tavern car, we get comfy and start gazing out the windows. The scenery on the Jordanova Sub is beautiful, and there are many Lineside attractions to be seen as we make our way down the line. Around the back of Molly's Diner, we see a billboard posted by the Southern Pacific Railroad, warning passers-by of low-flying aircraft. As to what kind of aircraft they're referring to, the mind can only wonder. This was actually a gift from my close friend and fellow Miniature Models podcast co-host, John, or RetroMikado96. Knowing that I am a big Southern Pacific enthusiast, he was kind enough to snag it for me. I have plans to find a more detailed frame for the billboard later down the line, but for now, the post-war style one is here to stay. Behind the billboard, we find a few members of the diner staff taking a well-earned break. The lunch rush has just ended, and the cooks are complaining about how grumpy old Miss Fitzgerald sent her fries back 3 times, citing that they weren't fresh enough. Even the neighborhood dog seems to empathize with their frustration. As we move further down the line, I could swear that our eyes are deceiving us. Out the window, we see figures standing in the forest, both dressed in older, more fanciful clothes, proclaiming themselves to be the so-called guardian of civilization and keeper of nature. There must be some truth to their claims, as they're surrounded by a wild herd of deer. Either that, or we're starting to see things. Perhaps it's time to ease off the drinks. Across the tracks, we find a humble machine shop with various parts and projects scattered across the lawn. Sitting quietly by the entrance, we see the cab of an old truck waiting for that one rainy day where the owner will get around to restoring it. Inside, we see a very well-stocked workshop. The owner of the building seems to be very content with spending his afternoon tinkering away and organizing his tools. The building is actually a kit by Evergreen Hill Designs that I purchased at my local trade show. The last owner of this building had painstakingly hand-painted every little detail, and I did my best to make sure that every last piece was used in this scene. As fun as it is to poke around and see what goodies are hiding here, we should probably move along, as there's a foreboding warning on the edge of the property, and judging by what I saw leaning against the building, I don't think it's just for show. Traveling further down the line, the scenery starts to shift to a more dry and desert-like climate. It's moments like these that make us appreciate the air-conditioned cars on this train. Nestled behind some cacti, behind an embankment, we see a small hobo camp. Their clothes may be worn and dirty, and their pockets are empty, but their spirits are high. They pass a bottle around as they gather around the fire and cook themselves a nice hot meal. This part of the layout is one of my favorite spots to film and photograph trains. The combination of the backdrop, scenery, and super elevated curbs really helped to immerse the trains into the landscape. I took much inspiration from Interurban Era here on YouTube and his photo curve. I highly recommend creating one of your own for a fun and eye-catching scene on your layout. We catch our train once again as it slows down into the yard. Here, we will be switching at motive power before the train tackles the grade up ahead. Easing down on the throttle, our engineer expertly brings the train to a gradual stop, so not a single drop is spilled from anyone's drinks. While preparations are being made, let's take a few moments to explore the surrounding area. This portion of the layout has experienced the most growth and change over the past few years. Though the track plan hasn't changed at all, the addition of scenery has transformed the field completely. If you're interested in a step-by-step walkthrough on how I did the scenery, check out my tutorial video here. As with the track plan, the yard features 3 sidings, connected by a switchback. Due to the size of the layout, the switchback doesn't go very far. However, it's just the right size that even monstrous big boys can squeeze through and safely park on the first siding. This also allows for the yard to be used for challenging switching maneuvers, which has created some of the most head-scratching switching puzzles of all time. Many have attempted it, but only a few have succeeded. At the yard lead, there's an overhead signal bridge from K&R. This was from my friend Matt Trainliver 9943. Currently, the lights don't automatically change on their own, but in future, I'd like to be able to take advantage of that functionality. For the time being, it adds some visual interest and height to the side of the layout. A short distance away, we see the power for our train being prepared for the next leg of our trip. Resting in the engine servicing facility, nestled between 2 supports of a gantry crane, a pair of Alco PAs grumbles to life. There's a lot of hustle and bustle as men run back and forth to get these iron horses ready for their runs. Across from the PAs, we see a very old and tired Southern Pacific Atlantic. Back in its heyday, this engine was painted in vibrant daylight colors, but now wears the same somber black, much like every other steam locomotive in the roster. This engine was customized and repainted by my friend Otaku Railfan. Long gone are the days of heading fast past your trains, and the engine gets ready to couple up to a work caboose and assist with track maintenance. Nearby is an engine shed and a parts boneyard. An old boxcar has been repurposed into a storage shed, and spare wheels and parts are scattered across the yard. At the engine shed, we see the yard's resident switcher departing to meet an incoming freight train. We once again catch up with the Alcos as they trundle past the Strawberry Surprise Company, famously known for having some of the best strawberries here on the Jordanova Sub. The company logo and billboard were created and designed by Sleepy Time Junction, who had also created my channel logo. She's also done work for Sid's Trains, Maddie C's Trains, Trainman Dad, West Chicago Model Railroad, and the Miniature Models Podcast, and many others. I highly recommend her work, as it is of the highest quality. She's done some custom cars for me as well, and we plan to create some matching strawberry reefers and trucks to match. Around the back, we see the loading dock where many trucks are being loaded up with fresh produce. The inspiration for this area was taken from watching Amelia Watson play L.A. Noire and watching her crash into every car in sight.
I'm a great driver.
She eventually reached the mission taking place at the just-picked fruit market. That set off a light bulb in my brain. I attempted to recreate that in my own industrial district. Men loading crates, trucks leaving and arriving, and the vintage street lamps help to sell the look. Cutting across the lot, we see the end of the switchback. A grade crossing connects the warehouse to the main roadway, allowing for a cohesive way for vehicles to navigate from downtown to the industrial district. On either side of the grade crossing are a set of MTH crossing gates. They're a bit too modern for my time period, and I plan to replace them using dwarven crossing gates from trains. I also plan to use some of their lampposts for my yard lights, as my Woodland Scenics ones are a bit finicky and turn off if someone so dares us to sneeze near them. As we return back to our train, it's not long before the engine is cut from the consist and moves off for servicing. Moments later, a pair of Alco PAs backs down onto the train, and we can hear the prime movers notch up to recharge the air lines. Across the tracks, we can find the yard tower. This is an old Atlas yard tower that I purchased from my local hobby shop. Manning the levers is a gentleman who looks awfully familiar to a sweater-wearing Philadelphian. Not too far away is also a very familiar-looking chaotic detective watching over it all. Since we're in the control tower, let's take a few moments to go over the power and controls for the layout. Two 180 PowerMaster bricks provide power to the layout. This has helped tremendously when hosting running sessions, since we don't have to turn off the entire layout if one person wants to switch trains. In terms of command control, the layout is equipped with MTH DCS and Lionel Legacy. However, in the past year, Bluenami DCC equipped engines have started to outnumber the Lionel Legacy and TMCC fleet. Since Bluenami is Bluetooth DCC, it allows for control of DCC-equipped engines without the need to wire in a DCC system. Plus, it can be run on the same track as DCS and Legacy TMCC engines. Getting to step outside the pigeonhole of DCS and Legacy has been very refreshing, and the operating experience since then has been amazing. It brings a whole new level of realism and immersion that just wasn't there before. If you're curious about Bluenami, check out our videos that Sid and I have made about this exciting new system. With our short visit to the switch tower complete, and our new crew aboard, we wait for the inbound freight train to pass. Now that the freight has cleared the block, we get an all clear from the switch tower, and our train, now refueled and refreshed, once again departs to make its way up the grade. As the train starts its climb up the grade, we pass the area of the layout with the least amount of change. There were always plans to add elevation to the side of the layout, but I was indecisive of how I wanted to tackle it. For the longest time, I wanted to have a road running parallel to the right-of-way, with a small country general store at the very edge of the layout. However, as the yard and industrial district evolved, the more out of place the general store became. No longer was in the middle of a rural desert wilderness, but now was across the street from a major warehouse and rail yard. As luck would have it, inspiration came after my buddy, Matt Rochford, gifted me a Woodland Scenics water tower. It is an extremely beautiful and well-detailed structure, but I had no place to put it. In a perfect world, I would have placed it somewhere near the warehouse, but alas, there was no more room I could spare. The only place left was on the far side of the layout. After moving things around, I had placed the water tower on top of a piece of foam and copied Jason Stuckard's paper mountain technique, and within a few moments I had the start of my mountain. I plan to gradually increase elevation so the mountain reaches the highest peak towards the front of the layout. Currently, my old mountain occupies that space, and I've been pushing off its destruction for as long as I could. Originally, it was made from a Scenorama kit from Hobby Lobby, and it serves a decent enough job conveying a mountain. When building this mountain, I didn't have any articulated engines other than a Linemaster Challenger, so when I purchased my MTH and Lionel Big Boys, I expected that the mountain would probably have to come down. Yet, to my amazement, the big boys just barely clear the rock face and have no issues squeezing by. The mountain was saved for another day, but since this is the last part of the layout that hasn't been redone, it's a bit out of place in terms of the part of the country that I am modeling. In addition to that, there are some glaring mistakes such as exposed plaster cloth, but hopefully in the next few months this will be corrected. This is where we must leave our train as it continues onwards to its destination. But with the end of this journey begins a new series of layout updates as progress continues. I'm always doing small projects around the layout and on my collection, and I've already started my first layout update video. So, if you're interested in joining my journey, then please subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications. I also hope you guys enjoyed taking a tour of my new layout and hope this lives up to expectations. This is hands down my most requested video for the past year, and I'm happy to finally be able to present the fruits of my labor. Let me know what else you guys think I should add down in the comments below. I'd also like to take a few moments to thank Isaac at O-Scale Everyday for creating the fantastic custom MTH sound files featured on our trip today. If you're interested in his work, please check out his Instagram for his latest sound files. I also would like to thank the fantastic folks at Charles Smiley Presents for allowing me to use their footage for this video. And last but not least, thank you for watching and for checking out the layout. I hope you enjoyed the sights, and I'll catch you all in the next one.